The winter of 1985 brought more than just cold weather to Silicon Valley. In a small apartment in Palo Alto, James Chen stared at his twin baby boys sleeping peacefully in their shared crib. Michael and Marcus, just 6 months old, held hands even in their sleep. James's heart felt heavy as he thought about the choice he had to make tomorrow. His wife, Lynn, sat at their worn-out kitchen table, her eyes red from crying. The bills were spread out before her: unpaid rent notices, maxed-out credit card statements, and a final warning from the bank about their mortgage. James's tech startup was failing, and they couldn't even afford baby formula for the twins anymore. "We have no choice," Lynn whispered, her voice shaking. "We can't take care of both of them properly." She looked at the twins, her heart breaking. "My sister in Singapore says she can help me find work there. I can take one of them with me." James ran his fingers through his messy black hair. They had been fighting about this for weeks. Splitting up the twins felt wrong, but watching them go hungry felt worse. Their tiny apartment was already being heated by the oven because they couldn't pay the heating bill. The next morning came too quickly. Lynn had packed a small suitcase with half of the twins' clothes. They had decided she would take Marcus to Singapore. James would keep Michael in California, or he could try one last time to make his company work. "How will we explain this to them when they're older?" James asked, holding Marcus tightly. Lynn touched Michael's cheek gently. "We tell them nothing," she said firmly. "It will hurt them more to know they were separated. Better they each think they're an only child. They can have a fresh start." James disagreed, but he was too tired to fight. They had already bought Lynn's plane ticket with borrowed money. She would leave that afternoon. The hours passed like minutes. Soon, they stood at the airport departure gate. Lynn held Marcus, who was wearing a blue onesie. Michael, in a matching green one, was in James's arms. The twins reached for each other, making happy baby noises, not knowing these would be their last moments together. Final boarding call for Singapore Airlines Flight 218. The announcement echoed through the terminal. Lynn kissed Michael's forehead, tears falling freely now. James hugged Marcus one last time, breathing in his baby smell. Then, just like that, Lynn walked through the gate with Marcus, not looking back because she knew she would break down if she did. James watched until they disappeared from view. Michael started crying, as if he knew something precious had been taken from him. In that moment, James promised himself he would work harder than ever before. He would give Michael the life both twins deserved. The drive home was silent except for Michael's soft whimpers. The apartment felt enormous and empty with half of their family gone. James put Michael to bed in the crib that now seemed too big for one baby. That night, James sat at his computer, Michael sleeping beside him in a baby carrier. He typed furiously, working on a new code that he hoped would save his company. He had an idea for a revolutionary security software. It was his last chance. "I'll make things right," he whispered to his sleeping son. "Someday, we'll find a way to fix this." But as the years passed, success came at a price. James's security software company grew beyond his wildest dreams. By 1990, he was a millionaire. By 2000, a billionaire. Michael grew up surrounded by luxury, never knowing about his twin brother on the other side of the world. Meanwhile, in a small Singapore apartment, Lynn worked 2 jobs to give Marcus a good life. She kept her promise, never telling him about his twin or his wealthy father. She saved every newspaper article about James Chen's success, hiding them in a box under her bed, wondering if she had made the right choice. The twins grew up worlds apart, but some bonds can't be broken by distance. They both felt it. A strange emptiness they couldn't explain, like a phantom limb. Neither knew that the missing piece of their life was out there, living, breathing, and feeling the exact same void. 25 years had passed since that day at the airport. The world had changed, and so had the Chen family, though they now lived as 2 separate halves of a broken whole. In Palo Alto, Michael Chen woke up in his luxury penthouse apartment. The wall-to-ceiling windows showed a perfect view of Silicon Valley, where his father's company, Chen Security Systems, had its headquarters. At age 25, Michael was already a vice president in the company. The business magazines called him the Prince of Silicon Valley. That morning, as he got ready for work, Michael stopped to fix his dark hair in the mirror. Something about his reflection always bothered him, like looking at an incomplete picture. He shook off the feeling, straightened his expensive tie, and headed to his Tesla. Meanwhile, in Singapore, Marcus Tan, he had his mother's surname, was also starting his day. He lived in a modest three-room apartment with his mother, Lynn. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains as he sat at their small kitchen table, coding on his laptop while eating simple noodles for breakfast. "Marcus, don't forget your lunch," Lynn called out, placing a packed container next to him. Even at 25, she still fussed over him like a child. Marcus smiled, though he noticed the new gray hairs at her temples. Years of working multiple jobs had aged her faster than time should have allowed. Both young men had grown up to be brilliant with computers. In California, Michael led a team developing new security software, his father beaming with pride at every success. The company's stocks rose higher each time Michael introduced a new product. In Singapore, Marcus worked for a small tech startup where his innovative coding solutions were slowly getting noticed. His colleagues joked that he could talk to computers better than people. What they didn't know was how many nights he stayed up late, teaching himself advanced programming, determined to make a better life for his mother. Strange coincidences followed the twins, though neither knew about the other. They both had the same habit of rubbing their left ear when deep in thought. They both loved spicy food and hated the smell of coconut. They even shared the same recurring dream of playing with another boy in a room they couldn't quite remember. One sunny afternoon, Michael sat in his father's office on the 30th floor of the Chen building. James Chen, now 65 but still sharp as ever, watched his son present a new security system. "This will revolutionize how we protect data," Michael explained, his hands moving excitedly as he talked. James felt a familiar pang of guilt. Michael had the same passionate way of speaking as his brother. That same day in Singapore, Marcus was also making a presentation, but to a much smaller audience. His startup team listened as he showed them a unique approach to data protection. Lynn, who had stopped by to bring him dinner, watched from the back of the room. Her son's enthusiasm reminded her so much of James in their early days. The twins' lives continued in parallel, each excelling in their own way. Michael dated models and attended glamorous tech parties, but felt strangely empty despite his success. Marcus worked hard and took care of his mother, but always sensed something missing, like a shadow just out of sight. One night, Michael found himself unable to sleep. He walked to his balcony and looked at the stars, feeling an unexplainable sadness. At that exact moment, Marcus was also awake in Singapore, standing at his window, looking at the same stars. Their lives were like two sides of the same coin, so close, yet unable to see each other. Michael had everything money could buy but felt incomplete. Marcus had little in terms of wealth, but was rich in love and determination. Both were successful, both were lonely, and both were about to discover why. As autumn approached, fate was preparing to bring these parallel lines together. A small discovery in Singapore would soon shake the foundations of both their worlds, proving that blood bonds are stronger than time, distance, or even the best-kept secrets. The day that changed everything started like any other in Singapore. Marcus had taken a day off work to help his mother move to a smaller apartment. They needed to save money, and Lynn had finally agreed to downsize. "Marcus, can you check the boxes in my bedroom?" Lynn called out, her voice strange and nervous. She was in the kitchen, purposely keeping herself busy with packing dishes. Marcus walked into his mother's room, where cardboard boxes were scattered everywhere. As he opened the closet, an old shoebox fell from the top shelf. Its contents spilled across the floor, old photographs, letters, and newspaper clippings. "Mom, do you want me to pack these photos too?" Marcus called out, kneeling to gather them. That's when he saw it. A photograph that made his heart stop. The picture showed two babies, exactly alike, wearing matching onesies. One blue, one green. They were holding hands in a crib. Marcus picked up the photo with shaking hands. He knew one baby was him, but who was the other one who looked exactly like him? "Mom?" His voice cracked. "Mom, can you come here?" Lynn appeared at the doorway. When she saw the photograph in Marcus's hands, all the color drained from her face. She grabbed the doorframe for support. "Sit down, Mom," Marcus said gently, helping her to the bed. "I think you need to tell me something." Lynn's hands trembled as she took the photograph. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, tears falling onto the old picture. "I wanted to tell you so many times." Over the next hour, the truth came out. Marcus learned about his father, James Chen, now a famous billionaire. He learned about his twin brother, Michael, who lived in California. He discovered that his whole life story had a missing half. Why? Marcus asked, his voice hollow. Why did you separate us? Lynn told him everything. About the poverty, the desperate choice, the agreement to never tell the twins about each other. Marcus listened silently, his mind racing with 25 years of questions. He grabbed his laptop and searched for Michael Chen, Silicon Valley. Hundreds of pictures appeared. Marcus stared at his own face on another man's body, in another man's life. Michael in expensive suits at tech conferences. Michael driving luxury cars. Michael standing next to their father, a man Marcus had never met. Does he know about me? Marcus asked. Lynn shook her head. Your father agreed never to tell him. Marcus spent the rest of the day in a daze, helping his mother pack while his mind spun with the revelation. That night, he couldn't sleep. He sat at his computer, reading everything he could find about his twin and their father. He learned that Chen Security Systems was worth billions, that his father had remarried twice, that Michael was being groomed to take over the company. Every article showed a life of wealth and privilege that seemed like a different universe from Marcus's modest existence. In his small bedroom, Marcus opened his coding project. On the screen was a security system he'd been developing, eerily similar to one Michael had created for their father's company. Even separated by oceans, their minds worked the same way. The next morning, Marcus called in sick to work. He sat at his kitchen table, staring at his mother's old photograph. Lynn watched him with worried eyes as she got ready for her job at the restaurant. What are you going to do? She finally asked. Marcus looked up at her. I don't know, he said honestly. But I can't pretend I don't know anymore. After his mother left, Marcus opened his email. He stared at the blank screen for an hour before starting to type. Dear Mr. Chen, my name is Marcus Tan. 25 years ago, you and my mother made a decision that changed 4 lives forever. I recently found a photograph of 2 babies, one in blue, one in green. His finger hovered over the send button. In California, Michael was just getting ready for bed, unaware that his world was about to change forever. And somewhere between them, a father was about to face the consequences of a choice made long ago. A week had passed since Marcus sent the email to his father. Every morning, he checked his inbox with his heart racing, but no reply came. He threw himself into researching everything about his twin brother's life, trying to understand the person he should have grown up with. Late one night at his small desk, Marcus created a private social media account to follow Michael's public profiles. His screen filled with images of his brother's life, charity galas, tech conferences, yacht parties. Each photo felt like looking through a window into another world, a life that could have been his. You should eat something, Lynn said, bringing him a bowl of noodles. She watched her son scroll through another article about the Chen family. Maybe he didn't get your email. Marcus knew better. Chen Security Systems had the best email systems in the world. Of course, his father had received it. The silence was an answer itself. During his lunch break the next day, Marcus sat in a small internet cafe, watching a video of Michael giving a speech at a tech convention. They had the same way of moving their hands when they talked, the same slight tilt of the head when thinking. Even their voices sounded alike. Today, we're announcing a new security platform, Michael was saying in the video. Marcus paused it, noting the code displayed on the screen behind his brother. Incredibly, it was similar to what Marcus had been working on in his own job. That evening, Marcus created a detailed document comparing his life with Michael's. They had both started coding at age 12, won their school's science fairs in the same year, chosen computer science as their college major, developed similar security systems, never felt completely whole. The similarities were too strange to be just coincidence. Even separated by oceans, their minds worked in perfect sync. 3 more days passed. Marcus barely slept, spending his nights learning everything about Chen's security systems. He discovered his father's office email, private phone numbers, and daily schedule. With his coding skills, he could have easily reached out through other channels, but something held him back. What are you really looking for? His best friend Raj asked over coffee. Marcus had finally told someone about his discovery. Marcus stared into his cup. I don't know, he admitted. Answers? Understanding? Rather. The words felt strange in his mouth. That night, Marcus found an interview where Michael talked about his childhood. "Dad always pushed me to be the best," Michael said in the video. "Sometimes I wondered if I was living up to his expectations." Marcus thought about his own childhood, his mother working double shifts to pay for his computer classes, her tired smile when he showed her his good grades, her constant worry about money. Two different lives, both shaped by that one decision in 1985. He opened his coding project and found himself writing a program, a complex algorithm that could track and analyze a person's digital footprint. As he worked, he realized he was creating a way to learn everything about his brother's life, to understand who Michael really was beyond the glossy magazine photos. Days turned into weeks. Marcus's program grew more sophisticated, gathering data about Michael's work, habits, and daily routines. He learned that his brother ordered Chinese food every Tuesday night, worked late hours just like him, visited their father's house every Sunday, seemed to have few close friends despite his social media popularity, often searched online about feeling incomplete. 1 month after sending the email, Marcus sat in his room, staring at all the information he'd gathered. Pictures of Michael covered one wall, a timeline of the brother he never knew. His program had collected enough data to paint a complete picture of Michael's life. But something felt wrong. Marcus looked at his mother's old photograph again, two innocent babies holding hands. Was this how he wanted to know his brother? Through secret surveillance and stolen glimpses of his life? Marcus reached for his phone. Instead of hacking more systems or gathering more data, he opened his email and started typing a new message. "Dear Mr. Chen, this is my final attempt to reach you. I don't want money or publicity. I just want my brother to know the truth. He deserves that much. We both do. If you don't respond, I'll find another way to tell him. Your son, Marcus." As he pressed send, Marcus didn't know that in California, James Chen was finally ready to face the truth he'd been hiding for 25 years. James Chen sat in his large office on the top floor of the Chen Security Systems building, staring at Marcus's email for the 100th time. His hands shook as he reached for his phone and dialed his secretary. "Cancel all my meetings for today," he said. "And please ask Michael to come to my office immediately." 20 minutes later, Michael walked in, looking confident in his designer suit. "What's up, Dad? The new security system launch is in 2 hours." James looked at his son, the one he'd raised, the one who'd never known about his brother. "Sit down, Michael. There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you 25 years ago." Miles away in Singapore, Marcus was at work when his phone buzzed. An email from James Chen. His heart pounded as he opened it. "Dear Marcus, you're right. It's time for the truth. I'm telling Michael today. James." Back in California, Michael sat frozen in his father's office as James showed him the old photograph of two identical babies. The same photograph Marcus had found in Singapore. "His name is Marcus," James said quietly. "He's your twin brother. Your mother took him to Singapore when you were both 6 months old." Michael stood up so quickly his chair fell backward. "What? Is this some kind of joke?" But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't. Deep inside, something clicked into place, like finding the missing piece of a puzzle he didn't know he was solving. "Why?" Michael's voice cracked. "Why would you separate us? Why would you lie to me my entire life?" James tried to explain about the poverty, the failing company, the desperate decision. But the words sounded hollow now, 25 years too late. Michael paced the office, running his hands through his hair, a gesture identical to one Marcus made when upset. Does Marcus know about me?" "He found out recently," James admitted. "He's been trying to contact me. I've been too much of a coward to respond until now." Michael grabbed his father's computer mouse and clicked through Marcus's emails. His hands trembled as he read his brother's words. Each message felt like a punch to his stomach. "All those times," Michael whispered, "when I felt like something was missing, when I felt incomplete. I had a brother, a twin brother." James reached for his son's shoulder, but Michael stepped away. "Don't," he said sharply. "You don't get to comfort me right now." Michael pulled out his phone and searched for Marcus Tan Singapore Tech. Pictures appeared. A young man who could have been his reflection, working at a small startup, living a completely different life. "He looks exactly like me," Michael said, his voice full of wonder and pain. "All these years, right there on the other side of the world. James watched as Michael's shock turned to anger. The company launch can wait, Michael said, his voice cold. I'm going home. I need time to think. Michael, please, James called after him. Let me explain more. But Michael was already gone, leaving James alone with his guilt. In his pocket, his phone buzzed with a text from his secretary. Sir, reporters are asking about rumors of you having another son. What should I tell them? Meanwhile, in Singapore, Marcus stared at his computer screen, knowing his brother was learning the truth at that very moment. He wondered what Michael was feeling, what he was thinking. Were they sharing the same emotions even now, separated by oceans and decades of secrets? Lynn found Marcus at his desk that evening, still lost in thought. It's done, he told her. Father finally told him. And now? She asked softly. Marcus looked at his mother, seeing the worry in her eyes. Now we wait, he said. The truth is out. There's no going back. That night, in 2 different cities, 2 identical men lay awake, staring at their ceilings, their worlds completely changed. Michael in his luxury penthouse, Marcus in his modest room, both feeling the weight of 25 years of lost time, both wondering what would happen next. The wall of secrets had finally crumbled, but the hardest part was still to come, building a bridge across the divide that time and circumstance had created between them. 2 weeks after the truth came out, Marcus stood in Tokyo International Airport, his heart beating so fast he could barely breathe. After many emails and phone calls, the twins had agreed to meet halfway between Singapore and California. Neither wanted their first meeting to be in their father's city. Marcus checked his phone again. Michael's last message said he had landed. They had chosen to meet at a quiet cafe in the airport before heading to their hotel. Both had agreed they needed privacy for this moment. As Marcus walked toward the cafe, he saw his reflection in a shop window and stopped to fix his collar. Then the reflection moved differently from him, and he realized it wasn't a reflection at all. Michael stood 10 feet away, wearing an expensive suit that contrasted with Marcus's simple button-down shirt. For a long moment, they just stared at each other, neither able to move or speak. Marcus. Michael's voice was exactly like his own. Michael. Marcus nodded, trying to control his shaking hands. They walked toward each other slowly, as if in a dream. People in the airport stopped to stare at the identical men, but neither twin noticed. The world had shrunk to just this moment, just this space between them. This is, Michael started. Weird, Marcus finished. They both laughed nervously, then stopped in surprise at how identical their laughs sounded. Without discussing it, they walked to the cafe, found a quiet corner, and sat down. I ordered green tea, they both said at the same time, then stared at each other in shock. The waitress brought their drinks, doing a double take at their identical faces. After she left, Michael pulled out his phone and showed Marcus a picture, the same old photograph of 2 babies that Marcus had found in his mother's room. I've been carrying this with me since Dad told me, Michael said. I still can't believe that all this time. I know, Marcus replied softly. He reached into his bag and pulled out his copy of the same photograph. Me too. They spent the next hours talking, learning about each other's lives. They discovered they both loved spicy food, hated mornings, could solve complex math problems in their heads, had the same favorite color, dark blue, shared a strange birthmark on their left shoulder, got headaches from drinking coffee. Tell me about Mom, Michael said, his voice quiet. I've wondered about her my whole life. Marcus told him about their mother's sacrifices, her multiple jobs, her quiet strength. Michael shared stories about growing up with their father, the pressure to succeed, the loneliness of being what he thought was an only child. Did you ever feel like something was missing? Marcus asked. Like there was a hole you couldn't explain? Michael's eyes filled with tears. Every single day, he whispered. I used to think I was crazy. I'd look in mirrors too long, feeling like the reflection should move differently. The cafe closed, but they kept talking. They moved to a hotel restaurant, then to Michael's room. Hours turned into the whole night. They showed each other pictures, shared stories, and tried to fill in 25 years of missing time. At sunrise, they stood on the hotel balcony, watching the city wake up. 2 identical men with identical features but very different lives. What do we do now? Marcus asked, voicing the question they'd both been avoiding. Michael turned to look at his brother. The words still felt new and precious in his mind. "We can't change the past," he said slowly. "But maybe we can build something new, something better." Marcus nodded, understanding perfectly. They had missed out on childhood together, but they had the rest of their lives ahead of them. "I always wanted a brother," they both said at the same time, then laughed. As the sun rose over Tokyo, two men who had been strangers yesterday but brothers for 25 years stood side by side, their shadows merging into one. They couldn't change their parents' choices or recover lost time, but they could write a new chapter in their story. Starting today, they would no longer be just Michael Chen or Marcus Tan. They would be brothers, twins, two halves of a whole finally coming together. 1 month after the Tokyo meeting, both brothers were struggling to adjust to their new reality. Media had discovered their story, and newspapers worldwide ran headlines about the billionaire's secret twin sons. Privacy became impossible. Michael sat in his Palo Alto office, looking at yet another news article about them. His phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "They found my workplace." Reporters everywhere. The publicity was harder on Marcus and Lynn. Their quiet life in Singapore had turned upside down. Reporters camped outside their small apartment, hoping to get pictures of the poor twin. Every detail of their modest lifestyle was compared to Michael's wealth. "I'm sorry," Michael texted back. "I can help you move to a more secure place." Marcus stared at the message for a long time. The offer was kind, but it highlighted the huge difference in their lives. While Michael could easily buy buildings, Marcus had spent years saving for a used car. That evening, Lynn arrived home from work to find more reporters waiting. "Maybe we should accept their help," she said quietly, watching Marcus close the curtains. "Your brother wants to support us." "It's not about money, Mom," Marcus replied, but even as he said it, he felt confused. Wasn't that what had separated them in the first place? Money, or the lack of it? Meanwhile, in California, Michael was having his own struggles. His relationship with James had become tense and awkward. Sunday family dinners, once a tradition, now felt like torture. "You could have told me years ago," Michael said during one such dinner. "Every birthday, every Christmas, I had a brother out there, and you said nothing." James pushed his food around his plate. "I thought I was protecting you both," he said, but the words sounded hollow. After the company succeeded, it became harder to tell the truth. How do you explain keeping one son in luxury while the other struggled? Michael's voice was sharp, while Marcus and Mom worked multiple jobs to survive. The next day, Michael called Marcus. They now talked daily, trying to bridge years of separation. "Dad wants to make things right," he said. "He wants to give you and Mom shares in the company." There was a long silence on the line. Finally, Marcus spoke. "I don't want his money. I just want to know my brother. To have a family." But things got more complicated when Lynn finally agreed to fly to California. The media followed her every move, calling it the family reunion of the decade. Photos of her crying at the airport made headlines worldwide. The reunion at James's mansion was awkward and emotional. Lynn hadn't seen James in 25 years. She stood in his massive living room, looking small and out of place. "Your house is bigger than our entire apartment building," she said softly. James couldn't meet her eyes. The weight of their choices hung heavy in the air. Michael and Marcus watched their parents, feeling the pain of 2 decades of separation. That night, the twins sat by James's pool, away from the adults. "Are you angry?" Michael asked. "About everything." Marcus looked at the expensive houses surrounding them. "Sometimes," he admitted. "Not at you. Sometimes I wonder how different life could have been." "We can't change the past," Michael said, echoing their words from Tokyo. "But I've been thinking, what if we used our story to help others?" Marcus turned to his brother, curious. "What do you mean?" "There are so many separated families out there, people searching for their relatives. What if we created a foundation, used our technology skills to help reunite them?" For the first time since the media storm began, Marcus felt a spark of purpose. This was something he and Michael could build together, something good from their painful story. Later that week, Lynn and Marcus returned to Singapore. The reporters were still there, but something had changed. Instead of hiding, Marcus faced them with new confidence. When they asked about the wealth difference between the twins, he spoke about their plans for the foundation. "This isn't about rich or poor," he told the cameras. "It's about family, about healing, about turning pain into purpose." In California, Michael watched his brother's interview online, feeling proud. They had missed 25 years, but they weren't missing any more time. Together, they would write a new story, not as the rich twin and the poor twin, but as brothers working to heal other broken families. 2 years had passed since the twins first met in Tokyo. On a sunny morning in Singapore, Marcus stood in front of a new building, smiling as workers installed the sign, Chen Tan Family Reunification Foundation. Inside, Michael was setting up his laptop for their daily video meeting with their global team. The foundation had already helped hundreds of separated families find each other. The twins had turned their story of separation into a mission of reunion for others. "The DNA matching system is ready," Michael announced as Marcus walked in. They had developed special software that could help people search for lost relatives. It was faster and more accurate than anything else available. "Perfect timing," Marcus replied. "We have 10 new cases this week." He looked around their modern office, still amazed by how much had changed. The foundation had offices in Singapore, California, and 5 other countries. Their parents had changed too. Lynn had finally accepted some help from James, allowing him to buy her a comfortable apartment near Marcus. She still worked at her favorite restaurant, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Her regular customers meant too much to her to leave. James had stepped down as CEO of Chen Security Systems, letting Michael run the company. He now spent most of his time helping at the foundation, trying to make up for his past mistakes. Every successful reunion felt like a small piece of redemption. "Dad's flying in tomorrow," Michael said, checking his calendar. "He wants to be here for the Wang family reunion." They were helping a Chinese family who had lost their daughter during the one-child policy years. Marcus nodded, remembering how emotional these reunions could be. Last month, they had helped reunite Korean sisters separated during the war. The sisters had cried and hugged for hours, just like Marcus and Michael had done in Tokyo. Their own relationship had grown stronger every day. They talked constantly, shared every important moment, and even finished each other's sentences. The media still followed their story, but now they focused on the foundation's work instead of the twins' different backgrounds. "Remember when we were afraid to meet?" Marcus asked, looking at an old photo from Tokyo. It hung on their office wall next to pictures of families they had helped reunite. Michael laughed. "Now we can't go 2 days without talking." He pointed to another photo, the twins with both their parents at last Christmas. They had celebrated together in Singapore, mixing Chinese and American traditions. The foundation had changed more than just their family. They had created jobs for many people who had their own stories of separation. Their team included a Korean programmer who had found his brother through their foundation, a Vietnamese researcher who was still searching for her parents, an American data analyst who had been adopted and helped others find their birth families, technology experts who believed in their mission. That afternoon, they had their weekly family video call. Lynn was cooking in her kitchen while James sat in his Palo Alto home. The twins watched their parents joke and laugh together, healing old wounds through time and understanding. "We're launching the mobile app next month," Marcus told them. The app would help more people access their search tools. "And we're opening 3 new offices," Michael added, "in Mexico, India, and South Africa." Lynn wiped happy tears from her eyes. "Look at my boys," she said proudly, "working together to help others." James nodded, his own eyes wet. "I wish we had been brave enough to keep you together," he said. "But you've turned our mistake into something beautiful." After the call, the twins worked late into the night. Their office overlooked the Singapore skyline, lights twinkling in the darkness. A photo of 2 babies in blue and green onesies sat on their shared desk, a reminder of where their story began. "Hey Marcus," Michael said suddenly. "Do you still feel like something's missing?" Marcus looked at his brother, his best friend, his business partner, his twin. "No," he smiled. "Not anymore." Outside their office, another family waited hopefully for news about their lost relative. The twins had learned that while they couldn't change the past, they could help others find their future. Their story of separation had become a story of reunion, not just for them, but for hundreds of families around the world. And somewhere in a box in Lynn's apartment, An old photograph of two babies holding hands reminded them that some bonds can never truly be broken. They just need time to find their way back together.